Good evening. Afternoon, or evening. I'm sort of a little lost today because I had to hit a 6 a.m. out of the house, get to the airport, found out my plane was broken, 3-hour delay, got here about 45 minutes ago. So I'm a little messed up from that, but it's great to be here. It's great seeing some repeat people who were here 6 months ago, some folks that were here a year ago. This is one of my favorite events to speak at, to learn from. And we're going to be talking a lot about transformation at this event. So I want to get you guys bared on what I mean by transformation and what we're going to focus on at this conference. So transformation is a big word. I want you to think about not only the customer experience side, which we do a lot of talking about, and how we build applications out, and how do we build workflows and improve services with our end customers, but also think about how we change internally. And this is the Enterprise Transformation Exchange. We're going to do a lot of talking about how to make your enterprise smarter, how to make it faster, how to make it more innovative, how to take advantage of emerging technologies. And we're going to do all that in the next 20 minutes. No, we're going to do that over the next 2 days. And we're going to be covering blockchain, we're going to be covering AI, how to be an agile organization, how to really be smart about security in this world. And what I'm going to open and tell you about is a little bit of the reason why. Now, if we talked about this 2 or 3 years ago and we talked about why, we talked about, competition is getting fiercer. There's more startups out there that are challenging our businesses. We have Amazon breathing down our neck. We have Facebook changing the rules of the game if you're in media. So a lot of things changing out there. But what's happened in the last 2 years is there's been a lot of solid metrics and a lot of solid numbers telling us that those organizations that are at least playing at the right velocity, not even the ones leading, but the ones playing at the right velocity are starting to have financial impact. This is coming from a study that Wall Street Journal covered. Why do the biggest companies keep getting bigger? And the answer is they're aggressive about how they invest in their technology. And they're not just about changing the customer experience and the services, they're working on productivity. And the ones that are most productive are the ones that are doing their investments best are starting to leapfrog and get away from their competitors significantly. This has obviously been happening over a good number of years. And I suspect that this will continue to happen over the next 3 to 5 years. What types of technologies are we talking about that are going to improve productivity? We're talking about mobile experiences, particularly for those out in the workforce that are out in the field, salespeople, field offices. We're talking about RPAs and artificial intelligence. We're talking about IoT that's giving us more information about what's happening on our factory floor. Those are the things that are driving productivity outside of our business groups. So that's one side of it. The other side of it is not just what's happening internal, but also what's happening externally. The things that we are doing inside our enterprises to improve productivity and to drive new product are starting to drive things like gross margin, operating margin, and profit margin. So those of us who are investing in transformation programs and trying to do things with mobile, with cloud, with AI, blockchain, all the things that you're going to hear about over the next 2 days are starting to show significant financial impact. So let that sink in, and I'm going to turn the floor over to Glenn. He's going to tell you about some of the underlying technologies, and I'm going to tell you about the rest of them.
Thanks, Isaac. So Isaac's already laid out the fact that to the extent by which we can move our digital transformation program forward is going to really help determine who are the winners out there. So, like Isaac said, I'm going to talk about a couple of different technologies. The first one is mobile. So, and as the slide says, mobile is the face of digital transformation. And it's not because I say that, but it's because 82% of executives believe that that's true. There's some good stats here also. 80% of executives feel that their workers can't do their jobs without a smartphone. But yet, they're hoping that by 2020, which I guess this slide isn't really going very well, but by 2020, which is almost crazy, that only 70% of our enterprise systems will be available through a mobile device of some sort. And the last one, which I think is also really interesting, is that 62% of employees say that they delay getting work done because it requires them logging into different systems. Now, there are things like SSO and things like that that theoretically make this easier, but that last fact is one reason why I think that mobile is still a critical part of our digital transformation strategy, because this is what mobile does really well. It helps break down these organizational and system-based silos, letting you get data from your ERP, your CRM, your MRO, and many other systems, all within a very simple interface that guides you through a single business process, rather than having to go system by system by system by system. So definitely think that mobile is extremely important. However, that's not what everyone really believes. This slide is one from Benedict Evans at A16Z, and if you don't listen to him or read his work, you absolutely should. But what he's talking about here is that we go through these S-curves of technology, and after a while, we feel like we're done. Like, innovation is dead. It happened in the PC, and now there are people who are saying that it's happened with mobile as well. So it's not true, though. So yes, there's a lot of some of the hardware innovation, although I think that we're still continuing to see that there's a lot going on there if you look at what Apple's doing with some of its chips. But yes, but there's still a lot that needs to be done, and still a lot that hasn't been done within the organization. So I don't really believe that things are done. And one way to show that really that we haven't gone as far as we need to is a couple of stats here. So first of all, there's never usually a shortage of ideas. But if you can see here, and this actually came out of some VDC research that was presented by, I forget who I saw it from, doesn't matter. But VDC research did this, and only 1 in 3 organizations feel that they have enough resources associated against all of the different mobile initiatives that they would like to go do. So guess what? It's not that we don't have enough ideas. It's just that we don't have the resources to execute against those ideas. And you can see by some of these other stats here that roughly half of the employees at the firms feel that the firm isn't moving fast enough. And they're absolutely right. We've got almost 14 on average apps that we're deploying to workers across the organization. That's terrible. That's sad. Because not only is it a low number, because it's not just to the frontline workers, it's also to the home office. I mean, the home office people, not people who work in the home office, but headquarters. Executives, salespeople, marketing. But it also includes off-the-shelf apps. It's our Concur, Slack, Skype, all these other things. And really, only about just over a third of organizations are building apps that are custom to the business. So if mobile is a great opportunity to re-engineer our business processes, but we're not creating specific apps that make that happen and give us that opportunity to rethink the way that we've been doing things all along, we're doing it wrong, and we're doing a disservice to our employees. We have got so far to go. So I'll get off of that soapbox for a minute, but I want to talk about something else that I think is really interesting and really important, and that's digitizing the business. And by that, I don't mean moving off of paper and Excel spreadsheets into all these different enterprise systems and forgetting the image that you see on the screen. I'm not even talking about AR and head-mounted displays. What I'm talking about is moving off of just mere quantization, can't say that word very well, of our business. Like we have different part numbers, we have all of our dashboards for how are we running the business. We have quantities of stuff that of inventory, but that doesn't tell the full story. What I'm really excited about is the fact that now we're getting to a point where we can actually create a 3D representation of all of our business that really represents the world in which our workers work. So it's obviously, like this is a good example to show like why it's important for design. It allows you to do a lot of things and think through a lot of things to make sure that everything is going to work the way that we intended. It gets us much further than just like a simple blueprint, which is a 2D representation, which is almost never right. If you think about any of the construction projects that you've ever done in your house, you'll know that I'm right about that. But it's also really important if you think about aerospace as an example, where you've got dozens of, or if not scores of subcontractors building different components that go into building a plane by Boeing or by Airbus. So being able to figure out from a design perspective, not just the spec, but exactly how all that's going to kind of fit together is a very, very big move forward. And it's not just in the design, but it's also in the doing. Think about your service worker who's going out to try and fix something, and to be able to really see how everything is supposed to fit together with information from a digital twin really is a game changer. Construction, another example. It actually takes more time and costs more money to build a typical office tower than it did 50, 60 years ago. It's crazy. But part of that is because it's not even just the sequencing of the work, it's the fact that, or the logistics of getting all the right raw materials there, but when the construction guys come into the building to start to put things together, between the HVAC and the plumbing and the electrical and the walls, none of it actually fits together the way that everyone kind of thought it would from a design perspective. Again, that's where the 2D representation of the blueprint fails us. The 3D representation, and maybe giving someone AR in some way to see how all these things are supposed to fit together, lets these different teams do this together far more efficiently and provides us an amazing opportunity for productivity within the organization. And then the last area that I want to talk about, and there are so many areas that we could talk about, but is IoT. So we're truly at the Carl Sagan-esque billions and billions and billions of connected devices that we are putting out there as an industry. And they provide us that visibility into what's going on our factory floor, out, if you're agriculture, out in the fields, or anywhere that, or even some of the products that we've got, to see how are we operating, how are our products doing, how are our users using the products, are they doing the way that we thought? And there's all of this fabulous information that's being fed back to us. And with the intelligent edge and autonomy, we no longer have to say, oh, let's take all this information and ask the magical cloud to figure out what should we do next. We can actually take those machine learning models in the cloud, bring them down locally to the edge, and then as information comes in, we can automatically trigger actions to try and resolve things faster. And even better, we can take all the data that we've been taking, send it back up to the cloud later to feed those ML models, and then make even better decisions on the edge as we go forward. So I'm really excited about this, but this whole IoT thing isn't just puppy dogs and unicorns. There's a lot of challenges still to go in terms of how we manage these devices, how we update these devices, and how we secure these devices. We've got a security panel tomorrow, I believe, and hopefully we'll touch on that a little bit more. But on that kind of happy note, I'm going to turn it back over to Isaac.
All right. Thanks, Glenn. All right, so big things, some things that we've invested in a while with mobile, some new things that we're getting involved with IoT. I want to bring you back down to earth, something that's in every one of our organizations. I want to teach you how to play the small game, right? Before you play the big games, you want to go do your driver, you got to go play some small games and know how to hit and putt and chip and that sort of thing. Not all of you have big data in your organization, and not all of you are ready to get value out of AI and machine learning. But how many of you have spreadsheets in your organization with tons and tons of data going all over the place? Okay, so this is a problem that I've been talking about, I've been writing about, I've been talking to other CIOs about for a long period of time, because it leads to an inefficiency. How much of an inefficiency? Well, it was measured by IDC. It's a $60 billion inefficiency in this country. And you can understand what's happening, right? So somebody gets a hold of some data, they do some analysis around it, they show it to their boss shows it to their boss, and all of a sudden it has some value. And so what do they do with it? They say, let's go look at this weekly and monthly. And what does that person have to do? They have to go back weekly and monthly, pull new data in, put it into the spreadsheet, update their calculations, and make sure that they're all working before they get the presentation right and send it off to their boss again. 1 week, 1 month again. Okay, that's the loss of productivity. It also introduces a lot of data quality issues. In my book, Driving Digital, I talk about one of those examples. It's an example by Enron that was studied in terms of the number of spreadsheets, the types of errors that they were finding in them, how they were being shipped around, and the types of data quality issues it was creating. So when I was when I was a CIO at a number of companies that were data companies, we had all the technologies to bring data in, manage it in a number of different storage devices, put search engines, put BI tools on top of it. And I could tell you that all those technologies have gotten fundamentally easier over the last few years. If you look at some of the writing I've done at InfoWorld and some at CIO, what you're going to see is things like ETL. How many people have ETL in your organization? Okay, so that's really gone away, and it's being replaced by things called data streaming, which is really the real-time processing of data and replacing out the batch processing that ETL was really built up upon. How many of you have databases outside of just normal SQL-oriented databases? Okay, so if I raised your hands a few years ago, probably some of you, I think it would probably be half of you that'd be raising your hands and talking about big data or NoSQL types of technologies. But this is all the types of things that we are all doing to make our organization smarter, to process data faster, to democratize data. How many of you have self-service BI technologies deployed? Things like Power BI, things like Tableau. I got a bunch of hands raising up. These are the kinds of things that are going to make your organization smarter. It's going to take the inefficiencies out. It's going to bring them back to you asking for more. I want more data. I want more speed around it. And it's going to put a lot of pressure on you to put up a governance model, deciding who gets access to what data, how do you improve data quality, how do you manage reporting instead of spreadsheets so it doesn't get out of hand over time. But these are the kinds of things that are moving our organization faster. How many of you have DevOps programs running in your organization? How many of you think about DevOps beyond just Dev and Ops and think about it in terms of security and quality assurance? Okay, so you think about DevOps, okay, this is really a major program that's affecting both the culture and practices inside IT. It's taking groups that traditionally have not talked to each other, groups like development and operations, development trying to push things into production that might not be ready, operations suffering to make sure that these systems are up and running and performing well, and that clash of trying to do things faster while trying to do things more stable. All right, and the answer to this that the industry has come back with is bring these two groups together, not necessarily through a new organizational program, but in terms of mindset. Make sure that they understand each other's issues. Make sure that developers can automate more so that it reduces the number of errors when something goes out into production. Make sure that the operators understand that it's not just about having cloud environments, it's about using things like containers and infrastructure as code that are going to allow you to scale up and have multiple environments. And in between this is also about how to put quality assurance as a first player in this program to make sure that what you're pushing into production, number one, is automated. From a quality assurance standpoint, you're testing while you're building and deploying. And number two, that you have a way of pushing those changes out and knowing that it's gone through your battery of tests. Now, what you're seeing happening as you're doing this is you're taking operating responsibilities that have traditionally been waiting to happen until the end of the program, and you're starting to shift them left. Right? Quality assurance is happening earlier because it needs to be automated. CI/CD, continuous integration and deployment, is happening automated, which means operating concerns are happening earlier. And that's the way to bring security into the program, because you can get the developers to think about it, to put it into their test programs, to make sure that what they're building is hitting the structures and the standards that you're building out toward. And that's what's going to bring the group together, to have one common culture and one common way of doing things. And the latest research around this is that groups that are doing this are actually improving their organizational performance. And what that means is, instead of the manual work that they were doing before to get code deployments out into production, or to chase after another fire because something wasn't working in production, they're now able to automate and put their time into actually moving the business forward. I think that's what this is about. Lastly, around changing the culture, very important part of thinking about how you're working with your groups. DevOps is a very big part of that. But when you think about how I'm going to make my enterprise be a smarter enterprise and a faster enterprise. So it's a combination of not just what you're doing in IT and not just what you're doing with data. It's really about how you're interfacing with the business, how you're running your agile program so that there's business not only providing guidance in terms of the priorities and requirements, but they're actually participating in the agile program. How many of you have marketers operating inside your agile program? Okay, I got one vote in the back there. Finance people operating in your agile program, taking on stories. This is what I want you to think about, because this is not just about IT projects. This is really about moving a transformation program forward, and it's not just about IT doing things. It's also about IT being a little bit smarter about how they're working with the business. How many of you have programs to educate people in IT about the language of the business, how it's operating, where growth is coming from, where are the quality issues that they can improve on? Okay, I got one hand in there. So we got a problem, folks. Let's just, right? We need some more hands in there if we're going to move our businesses forward, and that's really about changing the culture. Glenn and I are veterans of this conference, so we thought we'd end our program today with telling you how to get the most out of it.
So we're all here to learn how to push our digital transformation journey forward. We're all here to learn about all these technologies. Some of us have done stuff already. So a big part of this is, yeah, hopefully we said a couple of things and you learn a few things, and the same over the next couple of days. But there's a huge opportunity for all of you to learn from each other. We got a small group here, nice intimate group, as Phil put it. Use that as an opportunity to talk to each other, learn from each other as well as from us. And also, as Phil was saying, in those one-on-ones or at the bar later, which that happens a lot here, in a good way. Just chat about stuff. Try and use this as an opportunity to give as much to it as you get out of it, and you'll find that you'll all be better for it. So that's what these conversations, this entire event is about, is having these conversations. And so we look forward to the next couple of days. Thank you, and back to Phil.
Thank you.